Hello everyone, Tutu Mora here. Today we're talking about self-care in 2020. An overwhelming year, and sometimes it can be overwhelming to think about how to care for ourselves this year. So today we're going to break it down into 4 priority areas where you can consider inserting some more tenderness and care into your routine and your overall being. So the first area that we're going to talk about is self-compassion. When things are tough, we can become our own worst critic. And so a couple things that you can do. The first one is to notice your internal dialogue that's playing when you're having a hard time. It's very easy to almost kick ourselves when we're down, when we're having a hard time. And so what is your internal dialogue like? Is it critical? Is it telling you where you should be or what you should be doing? Is it prompting you to compare yourselves to others? So how can you notice that dialogue that's happening? And the more you notice it, how can you start to interrupt that dialogue that's happening? Interrupt it with a voice of more tenderness, of more compassion, with phrases like, "You're doing the best you can," or "What you're doing is enough right now. Who you are is enough right now." How can you interrupt that dialogue and be your own cheerleader and coach yourself through what's happening? So another way that you can bring in a little bit more self-compassion is to write yourself a letter and write to yourself as if you were speaking to a very sweet and dear friend. How would you speak to them as they're going through this exact same situation that you are now? So in this letter, perhaps think about the questions that you would ask to this dear friend. Think about the tone that you would use. Think about the advice that you would give. And, maybe think about the level of non-judgment that you would use when approaching that dialogue or approaching their situation. How can you do that for yourself? Treat yourself like you are that dear friend. So this letter can be practice in a way. And if the format of a letter doesn't work for you, perhaps you could do a video message for yourself. So think about those 2 exercises, both noticing your internal dialogue and practicing interrupting it with a voice of more self-compassion, as well as writing to yourself like you would a dear friend, or creating a video message to yourself as you would a dear friend. And so in that way, starting to treat yourself and starting to form patterns of thought that are a lot more sweet and tender to yourself, because the last thing we need during this ultra hard year is to be super hard on ourselves, right? So the next area where I would invite you to insert a little bit more self-care is the area of resilience. So our ability to bounce back from difficult situations, right? So this whole year can be like a difficult situation, and resilience doesn't mean that we don't feel and process the weight of what's happening. It just means that we actively cultivate more support and resources to help ourselves process and move through those difficult events or feelings or sensations that come up for ourselves. So what tools and support do you have for yourself right now? And so a couple of things that I would point you in the direction towards. We did a video around building a coping kit that might be a good resource for you. And I won't go into too much detail, but that really allows you to hold yourself through moments of overwhelm without kind of triggering a negative behavior pattern. So that's a great video to check out and add to your toolkit of being resilient. And I would also bring forward that resilience requires a lot of flexibility. When we're feeling really anxious about all the change that's happening, it can be easy to become really rigid and try to stick to a plan or go over, what's going to happen tomorrow and make it a plan just to keep ourselves feeling contained and comfortable. But how can you bring that a little bit more moment to moment and allow yourself a little bit more flexibility to move through a day, to move through a year that really isn't adhering to any plan at all, right? So, I'm someone that tends to, when I feel anxious, to get really rigid, and that's something that I'm working on for myself. So how can you perhaps invite yourself to be a little bit more flexible? And if that feels really uncomfortable for you, to turn to that coping kit video and the coping mechanisms and tools that resonate for you. So the next area where I would invite in some more self-care is making space for rest. Just because we are staying at home right now doesn't mean that we're not stretched in all these different directions. In fact, it may mean that we are even more stretched. So, how can you take a real look at all the ways in which you're being pulled, all the directions you're being pulled, and invite in a little bit more space to say no, a little bit more space to set some healthier boundaries, and we did a boundary video as well, which you might want to turn to. And redefine what rest even means. Rest is a space where you can be still with yourself, listen to your own needs in your own body, and recharge your energy. So rest may not necessarily look like taking a nap or going to bed earlier for you. Rest may be taking a walk outside in nature. Rest may be moving your body. Rest may be being creative and drawing or painting or dancing, doing something that, gets you into your body, listening to yourself, moving your energy, and being in the present moment. So how can you take a look at the ways you're being stretched and maybe create a little bit more space, even if it's just, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, to be with yourself, have some restful moments to connect back with yourself, find your center, and then go about your day. Again, lots of videos we've done for the Y that are on the Y's YouTube channel that you can turn to move your body, to find a still moment to listen to your own body, to cultivate energy, or to do some restful practices to invite in sleep or a nap. So some good opportunities to explore, as well as some resources to check out. The fourth area in which we can all use a little bit more self-care is focusing on joy and gratitude. So it's a tough year, right? And there are still moments that can be super joyful. And finding that joy doesn't need to diminish the hardship that you're experiencing and that others are also experiencing. They can all those feelings can exist together. So what brings you joy right now? How can you invite in a little bit more of that into your life? How can you celebrate things that are small? And, regularly think about the things that you feel grateful for. A good practice when you're feeling overwhelmed can even just be to make a list of the things that you feel grateful for. And I think, if you are watching this, perhaps you are searching for a way to shift your perspective from one of feeling a little overwhelmed about this year. Shift your perspective from, I'm not sure how to take care of myself right now, to a place where you feel a little more resourced. So right now, wherever you are, let's just shift slightly into that more positive headspace. Let's take a couple deep breaths here together. So whether you want to close your eyes or lower your gaze, let's take a nice deep inhale. You might not have brought in a deep, fresh, oxygenating breath in yet today. So let's take that. Fill your belly with fresh oxygen. And give yourself a great big exhale. Let's do that 2 more times. Deep, full belly inhale. Full exhale. Last one. And And here, with your eyes closed, see if you can name 5 things that you are grateful for in this moment. Maybe it's for the body that you have. Maybe it's for your family, even if they're grating your nerves a little bit. Maybe it's for your pets, for the fact that you have a job, for nature and the outdoors, for food, for your bed. What, no matter how small, are 5 things that bring you joy and that you can be grateful for? And so just finding those things in your mind and holding them in your mind, holding them in your being. Gratitude is such a powerful vehicle for moving tough emotions and shifting your perspective, changing your whole outlook in a moment. So hold those 5 things and return to them however often you need to during the day. Sometimes there will be days where you need to pause 5 different times and think about the things that you're grateful for in order to just be in a better headspace. Sometimes gratitude can feel cheesy, but it works. So whether it's just one time a day that you think about what brings you joy and what you're grateful for, or if you need to ground yourself in that multiple times a day, let yourself have it. Let that be a self-care practice for you. And just see where these behavior changes take you. See how it changes your physical body and where you might be holding stress and tension. See how it changes your thought patterns, your inner dialogue, your emotional and mental well-being. See how it changes your energy levels. And so, this is all an invitation. I hope that you found something that you needed and something that could be helpful for you. And I certainly wish you all the best as we continue to move through this really challenging time. And, this community of the Y, whether in person or virtually, is here to support you. This is community. So feel that in itself can be something to be grateful for. And we'll see you back here next time on the Y's YouTube channel. Take care.